Good morning. Start your day informed and ahead. Today is Tuesday, the 21st of July. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
And I'm Cheska Litancala. We are bringing you the perfect mix of the headlines you need and the conversations that shape your day.
From the news desk to the digital space, we have got you covered. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and welcome to Morning Matters.
First in the news, the Senate Impeachment Court has allowed prosecutors to subpoena Vice President Sara Duterte's bank and tax records. The documents will be used in connection with the allegation of unexplained wealth under Article 2 of the impeachment complaint. Presiding Officer Chis Escudero said the requested records were clearly identified and that impeachment cases are an exception to the bank secrecy law. He clarified, however, that the records cannot be used to add new impeachable offenses. The defense maintains the request is a fishing expedition, while prosecutors say AMLAC records show some 6.7 billion pesos allegedly passed through Duterte's bank accounts. Senator Robin Padilla opposed the ruling, while Senator Alan Peter Cayetano said he may file a dissent.
The court will only allow these records to be used to establish a factual baseline against which the respondent's assets, financial transactions, and business interests during her present term may be assessed. Establishing such a factual baseline is recognized in settled jurisprudence involving allegations that a public officer's wealth is manifestly disproportionate to the lawful income and financial capacity of the officer and the officer's spouse.
Kung ganito ang pamantayan natin, edi buksan na natin lahat.
May I suggest that instead of objecting, I don't know if I'm alone or with others, I will not manifest anymore, but may I submit in writing which parts of the ruling I disagree, and if anyone wants to either manifest or submit in writing.
All right, so as expected, the biggest development yesterday was that the impeachment court ordered to submit or issue subpoena for the tax records or financial records of Vice President Sara Duterte. And the process will be, if it's the tax record, the President has to sign a waiver or written request para ma-open yun sa trial. Kasi dalawa lang naman yun. It's either written request or the waiver ng respondent, which is hindi naman yun gagawin ng camp nila VP Sara, no? Of course, if it's the AMLAC records or the bank records, it has to go through the clerk of court kasi they have to check if there are confidential or sensitive information that cannot be made public. So, yung mga gagawin nila. But of course, it is good to note also that this manifestation or decision of the Senate Impeachment Court was actually made even just July 6, no? In July 6, no? Pero ang tanong nga doon, bakit nag-oral arguments pa kung the chunk of the decision was made already in July 6? Ang sinabi ng impeachment court spokesperson na si Attorney Reggie Tongol, because nagkaroon ulit ng manifestation request for oral arguments ang prosecution, and the defense wants that too as well. So, kaya nagkaroon. And yung decision na ito was discussed during the caucus noong July 15. If ever nga, kung magkakaroon ng mga opposition, gagawa sila ng letter, diba, dissent, which is was said kanina sa report. Ang nakita natin doon, of course, the Cayetano siblings, Robin Padilla, and Senator Lauren Legarda, Amy Marcos, and Senator Camille Villar. Yung dalawa, wala. Si Senator Mark Villar and Senator Bongo. As of now, wala pa akong information unless kayo may information kayo na sasama sila dun sa dissent.
But also, when it comes to the documents, so the deadline for the banks to submit the documents to the clerk of court, that's July 30, 9 a.m. And out of all the entities that they requested, parang 19 yata yung na-approving subpoena. There are only 2 na hindi. The JTC group of companies and Pikimong, gusto ko lang sabihin, gusto ko lang kasi sabihin yung Pikimong.
Ayoko nga, I was trying to hide my laugh. Kasi baka sabihin ng immature ko.
Just wanted to
Okay,
say
sa tatlo na kaming
Pikimong, PH.
Actually, when they were saying it yesterday, nakakatuwa din. Ano ba yung pikimong? But that's final. It won't be included.
Kasi hindi daw, the records don't identify the VP or Attorney Carpio as shareholders.
Yeah, it's not in the general information sheet of the companies, at least in the documents of the SEC. But we also have to talk about what happened before the impeachment court ruled on the oral arguments,
Oh
right?
boy, that is a long discussion.
26 minutes to be
Grabe.
exact, as Senator Tulfo said, that they wasted 26 minutes. Well, that's according
For
to
nothing.
Senator Tulfo, right? Because Senator Alan Peter Cayetano and Senator Robin Padilla were, of course, airing their grievances. Senator Robin Padilla was defending himself, saying nagsubmit naman daw talaga siya ng counter affidavit in terms of the obstruction of justice complaint that he is facing with the ombudsman. Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, of course, also airing his side there. Pero at the end of the day, Senator Cheese still kept their statements on the record but said it would be more prudent to just discuss this when they convene themselves as a legislative body next week. Kasi right now, there's still an impeachment court.
Yes.
Diba?
Oo. Parang it's not a proper forum.
Exactly.
Yung sinasabi na to air their grievances.
grievances.
Oo nga naman. Kasi nasayang nga naman yung
26 minutes.
Oo.
Grabe yung talakayan din doon,
Yeah.
diba? It was quite heated. Even Senator Tito Sen said, diba, na he may not have experience as a lawyer.
He doesn't have 4 years in law school,
Oo,
but
but-
he has 29 years as a lawmaker.
But can I just say na, well, both of them, the defense and the prosecution, na ang galing nilang sa oral arguments. And of course, especially si Congressman Chel Jokdo, no, doon sa time na, doon sa punto na pinapaliwanag niya yung subpoena and search warrant because he was actually challenged by Senator Pia Cayetano. And she even said that, I know what you're going to say this, but let me hear it from you, ganyan. So, from an ordinary person's perspective that we are not the lawyer, we don't really understand much of the law, especially the legalese of it all, no? Maintindihan mo siya na, okay, so search warrant is like this, diba,
the difference
subpoena is like
between-
that, etc., etc.
Yes.
So, kudos to them actually.
Mas invasive nga ang search warrant compared to a subpoena.
And also to Attorney Michael Po, he was actually very
Yes.
calm in the way he was
Actually, both of
presenting his
them.
arguments.
Yeah.
I think that was the
I can
strategy.
understand.
rin, eh,
No, that's why I can understand why the prosecution chose Congressman Chel and why the defense chose Attorney Poa. Because the way they speak, the way they explain
exchange,
things,
diba?
and there's a level of respect for each other.
Diba? Civility.
Yes.
Even if they don't agree, diba, on most things, of all the things that they're talking about. And hindi mo rin maiwasan yung mga reporters that were asking them during the press ko na si Attorney Powa, sabi, will you be the next defense that will litigate this article of impeachment? Sabi niya, nako, iba-iba naman kasi naka-assign dyan. At sinabi pa niya, different strokes, different folks. Yun sabi niya.
So, but kudos to both
Yes.
sides
Yes,
for
tama ka.
making this debate quite amiable. But in other news, the Department of Foreign Affairs vowed to take appropriate action following another harassment incident involving Chinese personnel near Ayungin Shoal that left at least one Philippine service member injured. A video released on Monday showed a larger Chinese rigid hull inflatable boat appearing to drag a Philippine Navy inflatable boat. Chinese Coast Guard personnel were also seen striking Filipino troops with wooden batons. The Armed Forces of the Philippines strongly condemned the incident, describing it as a blatant disregard for the safety of Philippine personnel. It also called on the People's Liberation Army, the China Coast Guard, and China's maritime militia to immediately stop what it described as illegal and aggressive actions in the West Philippine Sea. The Department of National Defense likewise denounced the latest confrontation, saying it reflects a continuing pattern of provocative and hostile behavior by China. Okay, so this is the latest incident between the Philippines and China in the
Right.
past weeks, right? There was that AI-generated video depicting Filipinos as a monkey. China has been claiming Batanes, but this one, there was an encounter, right? A
Yeah.
physical encounter already between the Chinese Coast Guard and our Philippine Navy, and one Filipino troop was even injured. Right? He was hit allegedly with a wooden baton. So at the end of the day, I mean, we're talking about the safety here of our troops, right? For the Department of National Defense, our operations there were legitimate, right? So even the United States condemned what China did. They called it dangerous and aggressive, and they also urged Beijing to cease its destabilizing conduct.
And that incident happened well within our EEZ. Huh?
Yes.
So it's but apparently, the Philippines is hosting the 59th ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting, and supposedly the foreign ministers of China and the Philippines are set to meet. We heard from DFA spokesperson Dominic Imperial saying that of course it's going to cover bilateral relations between the Philippines and China and the impact of what's happening today globally to the region.
And then actually, this incident echoes what happened 2 years ago. No, I remember that July 2024, wherein there's an ongoing resupply mission. Tapos same thing din nangyari. They punctured yung inflatable, yung rigid hull inflatable boats. No? Tapos meron pang yung isang PCG natin na personnel na putulan ng thumb. Yes, oo. Then some of them were injured. And I remember that vividly nung 2024. So parang napagko-compare din yung nangyari. Na parang until now, di ba, ganyan yung nangyayari. But we talked to Ray Powell yesterday here on the studio. And we were talking about it nga, yung gray zone tactics. No? So parang at this point, gumamit sila ng mga pang-punctured ng boats, 'di ba, ng mga bato nung nakaraan, parang water cannon. So parang hindi mo naman din siya ma-place as weapon because sabi nga nila, hindi ka ba pwedeng mag-invoke ng Mutual Defense Treaty, 'di ba, with our alliances, ganyan-ganyan. But you cannot because ito nga yung sinasabi ni Ray Powell na gray zone tactics na parang hindi mo ma-differentiate yung ginamit nila na pangsakit doon sa personnel natin as weapon. So you cannot invoke Mutual Defense Treaty, 'di ba? So until now, yan yung mga pinag-uusapan din ngayon regarding the West Philippine Sea issue.
And that's why we should also commend at least our government for its transparency initiatives. We know what's happening in this part of the country.
And hopefully we don't see anything else happen to our kababayans kasi
Exactly.
all right. Okay, motorists, oh boy, face another sharp increase in fuel prices starting today, July 21. Diesel prices will rise by as much as 10 pesos and 68 centavos per liter, while kerosene will jump by up to 11 pesos and 77 centavos. Gasoline prices will also increase by as much as 3 pesos and 65 centavos per liter. The Department of Energy attributed the latest fuel price hike to renewed hostilities in the Middle East. Meanwhile, the Department of Social Welfare and Development has begun rolling out its expanded Uplift Cash Assistance Program to help ease the impact of rising fuel costs and other economic pressures. Qualified beneficiaries are receiving a one-time 2,000 peso cash aid. The program is expected to benefit 7.5 million households or about 37.5 million Filipinos nationwide. So for as long as we are 98% reliant on crude oil requirements, we will continue to be very vulnerable to all these price swings. You can see the numbers on your screen. Hopefully, nakapag-gas up na ang mga tao yesterday before. But I think some fuel companies are implementing staggered price hikes also for this week. And
Malaki kasi yun 11 pesos.
ang
for diesel.
sakit!
Yeah.
Yung pain
Na-feel
sa
mo yung
alamin,
sakit,
Jessica.
Oo, sa diesel, 11 pesos.
But what's good, kahit papano, no, Energy Secretary Sharon Curran said that the supply still remains stable because remember a few months back that was one of the biggest problems for us, not just the price but the supply. Will we have stable shipments coming from the Middle East? Because if not, that will create a bigger problem for our economy. But she assured the public that right now the inventory is good. So we're just going to have to deal with the increases. And hopefully, these oil companies don't exploit the situation. No, profiteering is something that we don't want to happen. So, and that's something the DOE will also be keeping a close eye on.
Right. It's good that you mentioned that because I was able to talk to attorney or director Rino Abad of DOE Oil Industry Management Bureau, and he said nga kasi there are allegedly some oil companies are withholding their inventories, no, and if caught, sabi niya there will be 10,000 fine, and then there will be suspension or revocation of the license of the oil company, and you can also file criminal cases against them. So if caught nga na sila ay taking advantage of the situation, no? And 11 pesos, mabigat yan, as we said, so they will be implementing it staggeredly. Pero yun nga, we'll see what's going to happen. Kasi sabi naman niya, as long as yung pipeline daw ng UAE and Saudi are both, kasi both heavily affected din yun, pero as long as that is still ongoing, pwede pang daanan, kahit nakasara yung Strait of Hormuz, we're still safe. May mga konting pagtaas, pero okay pa naman, sabi niya.
All right, don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after a short break.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. NBI Director Melvin Matibag is expected to take the stand as the prosecution's final witness under Article 4 of the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte. And for a preview of what to expect today, we now go live to our mobile journalist Merimon Reyes. Merimon?
Pauline, good morning. For this day of the impeachment trial calendar or series of Vice President Sara Duterte, we are anticipating and expecting the presentation of NBI Director Melvin Matibag as the last witness to be presented for the article of impeachment alleging the supposed threats that VP Sara uttered against President Bongbong Marcos, First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos, and former House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Ang nasabi dito ng House Prosecution, there would be fireworks, pasabog daw ang magiging testimony ni Director Matibag, and ito na yung magsisil sa lahat ng testimony sa binitiwan ng unang mga isinalang na tumestigo, sina NBI Agent John Mark Calilong, si NBI Regional Director Attorney Jeremy Lotok, and everything has to do with the NBI's probe doon sa supposed threat ni VP Sara. Pauline.
Marymon, balikan lang natin yung naging ruling ng impeachment court kahapon doon sa pagsapina nga ng financial records ni VP Sara. May update na ba kung ano nga ba yung naging boto talaga ng mga senator judges sa usapin na ito?
Actually, Pauline, tinanong natin yan kagabi kay impeachment court spokesperson Attorney Reggie Tonggol kung kasi ang inahanap natin dito kung magkakaroon ng botohan, supposedly simple majority lang ang kinakailangan. So kung 21 senators ang present, nasa attendance to nakabase hindi sa total number ng 24 senators. So kung 21 ang present kahapon, ang hinihintay natin kung may botohan ba na makukuha at least 11 votes para magkaroon ng verdict talaga. Pero ang nilinaw dito ni Attorney Tonggol, yung sinabi at binasa ni Presiding Officer Senator Chis Escudero, it was the decision of the impeachment court and the presiding officer. At dahil wala naman daw nagkaroon ng objection o other points of inquiry or concern from either the defense or the prosecution kahapon, wala na naging botohan na nangyari. And ang sinabi rin throughout the weekend, and nung sa simula pa lang, nung nagbigay din ng memoranda itong defense at prosecution, pinag-aralan na rin daw ng presiding officer talaga itong mga naisipasapi ng mga dokumento. Kaya yun yung naging ruling kahapon.
Okay, so Marymon, ano yung next steps ngayon na nag-rule na nga in favor ang impeachment court dun sa pagsapila ng financial records ni VP Sara?
Huli nang sabi ni Atty. Tonggol kahapon, kagabi ini-issue, so pwedeng ngayon daw matanggap na, ma-receive na nitong mga pinapasapinahan from the AMLA, from the BIR, si Commissioner Mendoza. And kung ang target nila ay ma-meet yung deadline na July 30, 9 o'clock AM para sa mga records na ito, yung sa case sa BIR, dapat daw ma-secure na ng commissioner ng BIR yung supposed authorization from the president. Ito yung nangyari nung corona impeachment, nung mga lumipas na corona impeachment trials na yung BIR commissioner para raw hindi siya ma-jeopardize sa isang criminal case at the same time para makapag-comply siya sa ipinapasapina ng impeachment court, humingi siya ng permiso at ng authorization mula sa Pangulo para nga doon sa pinapasapina ng mga dokumento. So same din daw yun dito ngayon sa case ng kailangan ipasapi ng tax records. Pero it's still in the realm of possibilities, ang sabi ni Atty. Tonggol, kung sakali man na hindi makuha yung authorization or kung hindi pa maibigay yung authorization. Pero for now, may panahon pa naman daw para trabahuhin ito. Ulit.
Okay, pero Marymon, bago nila talakayin yung article pertaining to the unexplained wealth of the Vice President, ay i-discuss muna yung sa confidential funds. Mangyayari na ba yan today o tomorrow dahil nagpatawag na rin ang impeachment court ng dalawang witness mula sa Land Bank?
Pauline, ang schedule today, tatapusin na talaga ni Director Matibag yung unang article of impeachment, yung alleged threats. And then ang target is tomorrow, uusog na sila, uusad na sa susunod naman na article of impeachment. Ito nga yung tungkol sa alleged misuse of public funds, to be specific, confidential funds by the VP. And yung dalawang pinapasapina nga na mula sa mga bank official, sila yung target talagang ma-present bukas. Then again, ang aabangan lang natin kung matatapos ba within today, yung direct examination, cross-examination dito kay Director Matibag or kung sakaling kakailanganin pa ng additional time until tomorrow. Pero ang malinaw, yun ang schedule. Tapos na ngayon itong unang article of impeachment na isinalang, usog na bukas sa susunod na article of impeachment. And then yung tungkol doon sa unexplained wealth, patagal pa yan, sa isang buwan pa yan or two kasi nasa 30 days itong nakaalat para sa article of impeachment related dito sa alleged misuse of confidential funds. Pauline.
All right, for now, thank you very much for that update. I was mobile journalist Marymon Reyes. Former Senate President Franklin Drilon said the ongoing impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte has become bogged down in technicalities, warning that the lengthy proceedings are testing the public's patience. In an interview with Storycon, Drilon said the impeachment court should focus on determining the truth and whether the vice president remains fit to hold office, stressing that impeachment is different from a criminal trial and should not be delayed by prolonged legal debates. He also argued that bank secrecy laws should not prevent the impeachment court from obtaining evidence, citing impeachment as an exception under the law. The former Senate president also urged the Senate leadership to exercise tighter control over the proceedings to avoid unnecessary delays.
Here we go again.
I knew that was coming.
So anong part, sir, yung sa tingin mo, here we go again, specifically?
Well, in the past 2 weeks, we have witnessed that the impeachment trial is is a mirror of a court proceeding. And that's why I said, here we go again, because nothing has changed after 2 weeks. We still see the same technicalities being raised all over, and we forget that this is an impeachment trial which should not be bogged down by technicalities, because the objective is to find what the truth is and the fitness of the vice president to continue holding her office, her post. Unfortunately, maybe I'm already impatient with the way things are going on, and I think I reflect the sentiment of our people. This is why can we not proceed faster? And that is a challenge that the leadership of the Senate and the impeachment court must face.
Police are tightening security nationwide as the government rolls out its expanded Uplift Cash Aid program to millions of Filipinos. And for the latest, we now go live to mobile journalist Jazz Paredes. Jazz, kamusang sitwasyon dyan?
Yes, Pauline, sa mga oras na ito ay inaabangan natin na magiging updates nga kaugnay na rin sa paghahanda kaugnay sa State of the Nation address ng Pangulong Bongbong Marcos sa darating na July 27. Kahapon, if you can recall, Pauline, napag-usapan na ngayong araw magkakaroon ng final coordination meeting sa pagitan ng NCRPO kung saan dito mapag-uusapan, Pauline, yung magiging designated areas nitong mga grupo na nag-signify upang magsagawa nga ng rally sa araw ng SONA. Kahapon, Pauline, hindi pa makapagbigay ng eksakto pangalan ng mga grupo at ilan yung mga inaasahan natin. At ngunit ngayon sa kanilang final coordination meeting, maaring malaman na natin dito kung saan sila pupwesto, ilang mga grupo ito, ilan yung kanilang mga expected na attendees, at pati na rin yung possible road closures natin for the SONA, araw ng SONA. At sa ngayon ay Pauline, inaantay din natin na magiging pahayag ni PNP Chief Melencio Nartate. Sinambangan natin siya mga kapanayam within today. At dahil nga kung kahapon, we can recall na 90% na yung kanilang final preparation. So, mga tatanong natin ngayong araw kung kamusta na ba yung progress, as if tumaas na ba siya from 90%, ano na ba yung mga dadagdag with their preparations with only less than a week before the 5th State of the Nation address ng Pangulo. Sa ngayon, Pauline, their reminder at ang kanilang paalala sa publiko remains the same. At kahapon nga kanilang sinabi na meron tayong arrestable offenses. Ito yung mga bawal yung pagsusunog ng LPG, yung mga tarpaulin, bawal din yung mga panggugulo. Dahil anything daw na masasacrifice yung safety and security ng mamamayan at ng taong bayan, ay doon sila kailangan kumilos at umaksyon. Even though maximum tolerance yung kanilang palaging ine-enforce. As always reiterated nga by PNP Chief Melencio Nartates and SILG Remulla, ay yun ang kanilang gagawin. Ngunit kung magkaroon nga doon ng kaguluhan at hindi pagsunod sa rules na kanilang ilalapag, ay doon daw sila mga aresto or doon nga lapapasok yung mga arrestable offenses natin sa araw ng SONA. Huli.
Okay, thank you very much for that report. That was mobile journalist Jazz Paredes. Don't go away because Money Talks with Kathy Yang is up next to get you ahead of the markets. I'm Pauline Verzosa. Stay tuned to One News.
Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, staggered increases for fuel prices this week as the Energy Department also appeals for discounts for PUVs. We speak with Topline Chairman, President, and CEO Eric Lim, who joins us from Singapore, where Topline Energlobal is now incorporated. The Philippines records the highest electricity rates in Southeast Asia in June, surpassing Singapore. And Filipino workers may see slightly higher salary hikes in 2027 amid competition for talent and rising costs, says global advisory firm BTW. The Department of Energy is urging oil companies to cushion the impact of big-time pump price hikes through staggered implementation and giving discounts for public utility vehicles. This week, diesel prices are up by 10 pesos and 68 cents per liter, gasoline by 3.65, and kerosene by 11.77. Some oil companies have implemented staggered hikes beginning today. Shell and Seaoil will divide the increase in diesel and kerosene for 3 days. Diesel, for instance, will rise by 8 pesos and 20 cents per liter today, 120 on Wednesday, and another 120 on Thursday. Petron, Clean Fuel, and Jetty Petroleum have divided the increase for 2 days, today and Thursday. Petron, for instance, will raise diesel prices by 8 pesos and 20 cents today and 2.40 on Thursday. Energy Secretary Sharon Garin says staggering rates is one of the requests to oil companies to help consumers cope with rising oil prices.
And we are also in talks with the oil companies to appeal to them to give discounts to our public utility vehicles, and also if they can stagger the increase of this week. Na pa-konti-konti lang para maplano ng maayos ng mga jeepney drivers natin kailan sila magpapakarga para hindi naman mabiglaan na sobrang taas ng akyat kaagad-agad.
But will pump prices return to the 100 peso per liter level? Here's what DOE Oil Industry Management Bureau Chief Rino Abad has to say.
Kung wala naman hong damages dun sa pipeline, mukhang mag-elevated lang ho tayo at 80 to 90, no? Pero pag yan ay lumala kasi tuloy-tuloy yung kanilang palitan ng missile, no, attack. Yun lang ang problema kung matamaan na yung pipeline.
Garin assures the public that fuel supply remains adequate. Abad also emphasizes that the OIMB has 4 dedicated teams tracking cases of hoarding and in close coordination with authorities. Cebu-based fuel supplier and energy retail firm Topline Business Development marks its entry into Asia's key oil trading hub in Singapore as global oil prices soar, closing in on $100 a barrel. The new entity, Topline Energlobal, was incorporated in June 2 under the laws of the city-state. Topline Energlobal, a wholly owned subsidiary of Topline Business Development Corp., serves as the parent firm's fuel trading and importation arm. Topline's fuel business runs from commercial trading to depot operation to light fuel stations and tanker truck logistics. With us now for more, live from Singapore, Topline Business Development Chairman, President, and CEO Eric Lim. Maayong buntag, Eric. Welcome back to the program.
Hi, Kathy. Maayong buntag.
All right, so
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, have you priced your fuels from today?
So actually, well, again, it's quite unfortunate, Kathy. There's another big-time increase, no, in the market. And currently for Topline and light fuels, we're the same with the other oil majors as to staggered increase, which is for today, we're doing about 80% increase. And the remaining increase will be scheduled on Thursday.
Now, how did you decide that? Because some of the other oil firms decided on 3 tranches of the staggered hikes this week, but you decided on 2.
Yeah, so we just want to make sure that in our in the retail area of the business, which is light fuels. We hope that this can also help with the consumers not to do the two increases, and of course a relief on Wednesday, so that they can also refuel prior to the Thursday increase. So that was the game plan from the team.
You didn't think about the three portions of that staggered rate hike and consideration that you also have industrial customers.
Yeah, yes, that is correct. So currently, Kathy, because again, for top line, we basically have two different revenue drivers. We have the commercial fuel trade and also the retail arm, which is light fuels. So commercial fuel trade is basically about 92%, no, of the revenue, in top line. And for us, we also want to stagger the increases in the commercial side to make sure that these are the essential businesses that's powering our industry. So we hope that we can also cushion the impact to the consumers.
And how is Topline Enter Global working so far? It's been incorporated for a month and a half there now in Singapore, where you're at, and you've since been directly engaging the global suppliers yourself.
Yes, it's quite interesting, Kathy, because again, if we look at the price of fuel in the Philippines, I think everybody knows that it's being pegged by the Singapore MAPS pricing every week. So there's trading from Monday until Friday, and the effect of the trading, it's either an increase or a decrease, will be scheduled on Tuesday. Now, so currently for us, we've been engaging with several suppliers, no? Because for Singapore, it's basically the trading hub for liquid fuels, no, in one of the trading hub in the world. So currently we're making sure that we're sourcing out our supply not only from Asia, but hopefully worldwide, to give us some visibility as to where the prices are going. Now, hopefully it'll be softer in the next few weeks. And so far, there's a lot of supply in the market. That's quite important. The question right now is just the fluctuation in the world market, the price in the world market.
All right, so as you scale importation, how are you then optimizing procurement with a trading house in a scenario where the Strait of Hormuz is effectively shut again and the alternative passage along the Red Sea is looking perilous as well?
Well, I guess if you look at the different analysts and the other news agencies, on the height of the war, this was a few months ago, everybody was looking at 150 per barrel price point in liquid fuel from WTI and of course the crude, and well, fortunately it didn't happen because there were other means of getting the supply out of the Strait of Hormuz. If you've seen in the news, Kathy, I believe Saudi had another pipeline going to the west side of to the Red Sea. So that's quite helpful. And for us, for Topline, we just want to make sure that we can get those supply. Since we're an importer of refined fuels, we just want to know where is the optimal area where we can source it. So the Strait of Hormuz would be a different one because that's basically crude. What we're importing is actually refined products straight to our depots in Cebu and the region.
So in your month and a half of having that trading arm, what sort of changes are you seeing in the way you're procuring fuel in terms of maybe counterparties, contract terms, and pricing power, and your ability to time those cargoes from Asia and the Middle East?
Actually, quite interesting, Kathy, because there's more into the hedging part. Because again, when we order the cargo, it doesn't arrive instantaneously. So we have to set certain milestones as to how the cargo arrives to our depot, and when it arrives, we can hopefully price it properly to the consumers, and that's what we're doing currently. We're also adjusting. We're just happy that we have a very great team here in Singapore. In fact, we'll be having a few meetings later to discuss with the different suppliers here.
So in what way do you think that's having a bit of an impact, maybe a trading boost to your margins, or at least keep the margins from whittling away in a higher for longer oil price scenario?
Yes, actually, so again, the name of the game right now, Kathy, is execution on certain levels of the different supply chains. So if you remember when we started the distribution area of top line, it was really more into buy and sell to source products and sell it at of course with a margin. And currently, right now, there are certain different kinds of pricing schemes to be implemented accordingly. So the business actually evolved over time. And again, as what we've shared before, we just did our follow-on offering, which is quite important, which is to serve the trading house and also to uh, uh, the uh, the top line energy complex facility so that we can accept those fuel coming in and out, coming in to the region. So we're preparing everything from our technical team to our marketing team to our sales team to our trading team. So everyone is all hands on deck.
Right, there are the benefits, as we can see and as you've explained, but what about the risks? There is concern that trading houses can introduce new risks like maybe governance, risk limits, and oversight. What have you put in place to make sure that you do strengthen supply security and price resilience?
Well, again, at the end of the day, we always have different committees, such as our board risk oversight, to make sure that the risks involved will have a limit to our trading positions. So currently, again, we're still a month in the trading house, but we see a lot of different kinds of pricing schemes that we can also uh, uh, help in the market, especially when we import. No? So currently, we're still checking as to where we can maximize and hopefully execute accordingly to our supply chain.
Interesting, it's also happening at a time the Energy Department is saying they're going to go stricter with the pricing, no longer the trading ranges that we had over the past couple of weeks. So how then do you price when you have the Energy Department saying, go stick with this price for this week?
Well, so far, we're still aligned with the Energy Department. And I think a month before, there was a ceasefire, well, an MOU, but actually right now it's being shredded to pieces, no? The MOU. So prices were a little bit more sustainable a few weeks or a month ago. And currently, the Energy Department is probably discussing with different motorists and also of course, the oil companies to make sure everyone is aligned. So far, we still see that prices that's being scheduled in the market are aligned accordingly.
Just as a final point, how is demand looking for your key market in the Visayas, given that we've already seen higher and elevated inflation all throughout these 4 months since the Middle East conflict began?
You know what, Kathy? There's a lot of questions from our investors regarding that. Are we experiencing demand destruction or is demand slowing down? So far in the region, we've still experienced growth. Now we've been, it's quite sustainable. In fact, if you check the first quarter numbers that we had significant growth. Hopefully, we can expect that in the second quarter. But again, so far, the way we've seen for the past few weeks, few months, there's still that sustained demand in our region, especially in Central Visayas.
And is it retail or industrial or both? I mean, which is growing faster still?
Right now, since industrial is still there, it's still growing significantly. And if you go to retail, light fuels, we already have about 50 sites now in our network. And currently, we're operating, or we've actually rebranded about close to 20 sites. So what we're trying to say is once we open those different sites of light fuels, we still see a lot of demand coming in, sustained demand on both the retail and the industrial side.
All right, well, we'll leave it there now. And safe travels back to Cebu. Thank you so much for the insights and the updates. Eric Lim of Top Line Business Development Corp in Singapore. And still on energy, the Philippines now has the most expensive electricity rates in Southeast Asia. Energy Undersecretary Rowena Cristina Guevara says the country's average power price in June reached 12 pesos and 43 cents per kilowatt hour. This surpasses Singapore's average rate by 9 centavos. In this list provided to the Philippine Star, the Southern Leyte Electric Cooperative, or SOLECO, recorded the highest on-grid residential rate in June at 16.57 per kilowatt hour. Meralco, the country's largest power distributor, came in fourth at 14.48 per kilowatt hour. Guevara warns that consumers may see higher electricity rates in the coming months.
Depending on the price increase of fuel in the next few weeks, we might see an increase in the price of electricity. Similar to what happened in the past, we will be encouraging our distribution utilities to first use the cheaper fuel before using the more expensive fuel. Of course, we also encourage the public to please conserve energy such that we don't have to run the higher pricing power plants.
In other news, the Philippines is seeing some of the biggest capital outflows in Asia as the Middle East conflict continues to weigh on investors' sentiment. Moody's ratings grouped the Philippines with India and Indonesia as energy importing economies that have posted the sharpest equity declines and the heaviest portfolio outflows since the Gulf War began. The debt watcher said the three countries remain vulnerable due to their dependence on Middle Eastern energy routes, low domestic inventories, and widening current account pressures. Despite the recent sell-off, Philippine stocks were up still 6% for the year to date as of July 17, although they trailed other Asian markets driven by AI, semiconductor, and capital goods shares. Meanwhile, analysts say foreign direct investment may remain weak for the rest of the year. This as geopolitical risks, high borrowing costs, and domestic governance concerns keep investors cautious. In April, FDI inflows fell about 59% from a year earlier to $250 million, the lowest monthly level in nearly a decade. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to pay a courtesy call on President Marcos during his week-long stay in the Philippines. The palace has not yet provided details on when the meeting between Marcos and Rubio will take place. Rubio will be in Manila until July 23 for a series of ASEAN meetings with foreign ministers, senior officials, and regional dialogue partners. The U.S. State Department says Rubio will advance a free and open Indo-Pacific, demonstrate the tangible results of the U.S.-ASEAN partnership, and deepen Washington's ties with Manila. Meanwhile, in a press conference ahead of the 59th ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting, the Foreign Affairs Department has confirmed a bilateral meeting between Secretary Teresa Lazaro and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. This comes on the heels of the Ayungin Shoal assault and China Daily's AI video depicting the Philippines as a timid monkey acting on the orders of the U.S. and Japan.
I don't want to preempt what they will discuss, but we believe that this engagement is very important because not only will it address or not only will it cover the bilateral relations between the Philippines and China, but it will also have something to do with regional, the impact of what's happening globally to the region, to ASEAN.
You're watching Money Talks. Coming up, a higher wage hike for Filipino workers next year. And what to expect on day 8 of Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial. Our mobile journalist Merimon Reyes joins us live from the Senate. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang. Philippine companies expected to give slightly higher pay raises next year as employers try to balance rising costs with the need to retrain talent. A survey by WTW found salary increases are projected to reach a median of 5.1% in 2027, up from 5% average this year. The Philippines is expected to outpace Malaysia, Thailand, and Singapore, but trail Vietnam and Indonesia in projected salary growth. The global advisory firm said employers are taking a more deliberate, data-driven approach to compensation as they manage higher costs and compete for skilled workers. The survey of 408 organizations also found most companies planning to keep their headcount steady over the next 12 months, while many are focusing on employee experience, training, and wellness to strengthen talent retention. The chief executive of the MFT group of companies says she is returning to the Philippines to face the cases linked to an alleged multi-million peso investment fraud. Maria Francesca Tan told creditors she does not intend to evade the charges and is prepared to be detained as she moves to clear her name. Tan said she wants to cooperate with the SEC, defend herself, and continue working toward a plan to repay creditors. An Interpol red notice has already been issued against Tan at the request of the SEC, which has charged MFT Group, Foundry Ventures, and their officers over alleged unauthorized solicitation of investments promising returns of 12 to 18%. Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial enters day 8 with NBI Director Melvin Matibag expected to take the stand as the prosecution's final witness under Article 4. For details, we go live to our mobile journalist, Merimon Reyes. So, Merimon, just give us a preview of what to expect.
Kathy, the impeachment court yesterday granted most of the House prosecution panel's requested to be subpoenaed documents, local bank records, tax records, AMLAC records, BIR records dating 2007 to 2021 of Vice President Sara Duterte and her spouse, Attorney Man Scarpio, plus business or corporate entities connected, affiliated, or related to the two. Now, since those are settled yesterday, today, the prosecution panel will be calling on to NBI Director Melvin Matibag for his fireworks of a testimony related to the NBI's probe on the supposed threats that VP Sara uttered against President Bongbong Marcos, First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos, and former House Speaker Martin Romualdez. The prosecution has said he will be the last witness to be presented for the first article of impeachment here at the impeachment trial proceedings. And then tomorrow, they will proceed to the next article of impeachment, which is alleging the misuse of public funds, to be specific, confidential funds. Bank officials will be called tomorrow to testify related to these allegations. And so far, that is the calendar for week 3 of the impeachment trial proceeding. Kathy.
Okay, we'll be watching later for the live coverage at the Senate here on this channel. Thank you, mobile journalist Merimon Reyes. And a quick check on the Philippine peso and see how that's begun trading this morning. A tad weaker, 61.69 to the dollar. The peso weakened yesterday by 9.9 centavos to settle at 61.686 against the greenback. Traders say the local unit depreciated due to the escalating U.S.-Iran tensions that resulted in higher oil prices. Mike Ricafort of RCBC says the peso slide may have been cushioned by the BSP's intervention, as there has been some resistance at the 61.60 to 61.70 levels. Checking in on the markets overseas, U.S. stock futures are little changed as investors looked ahead to the week in corporate earnings. The Nasdaq is up 0.2%. Both the Dow and the S&P 500 rise less than 0.1% each. Asian markets are a mixed bag this Tuesday. Japan's Nikkei 225 rises 1.4%. Australia's ASX 200 sheds about 0.5%. And South Korea's Kospi slides 0.1%. U.S. markets pulled back in cautious trading this Monday, though chip stocks reversed their losses. The Dow fell 0.6%, S&P slid 0.2%, and the Nasdaq closed near the flat line. PSEI survived late session profit taking yesterday, maintaining its hold above the 6,400 level. The stock market was up nearly 0.2% to close at 6,415. Luis Dimlingan of Regina Capital says investors remain optimistic ahead of the second quarter corporate earnings season, despite the global headwinds. The broader all shares index climbed nearly 0.2%, but the sector will gauge as mostly losing ground. At a brokerage's press briefing yesterday, Call Financial said it sees the PSEI reaching 7,500 by the end of the year if price-to-earnings ratio expands to about 12 times from the current 9 times. Chief Technical Analyst Juanis Paredo said the bourse should first break above the resistance range of 6,570 to 6,700 before testing the broader resistance area of 7,460 to 7,560. The 10-year government bond yields have ticked up to 7.32%. And here are some of the latest developments on the corporate front. A Brown company has completed its 2.3 billion peso investment in Alternergy's Tanay and Alabat wind projects, acquiring a 40% stake in each. Alternergy retains management control with the 128-megawatt Tanay project set for commercial operations in October and a 64-megawatt Alabat project also on track. The Court of Tax Appeals has voided the BIR's 212.48 million peso tax assessment against San Roque Power. The court ruled its renewable energy ancillary services qualified for zero-rated VAT, while payments for services rendered abroad were not subject to Philippine withholding taxes. And Philippine Airlines is seeking government approval to revive direct flights between the Philippines and India. The flag carrier wants additional flight entitlements as it expands its international network and adds more aircraft to its fleets. And that is it for Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Kapatid, we are One News, your side all the time. Morning Matters returns at 9:30 a.m. Have a great day ahead.
Good morning mga kapatid. Welcome back to Morning Matters. Now, as we know, Day 7 of Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial centered on the prosecution's request for her bank and tax records. The impeachment court granted the subpoenas in connection with the unexplained wealth allegation under Article 2. Presiding Officer Cheese Escudero said the requested documents were specific enough and that impeachment cases are an exception to the bank secrecy law. Escudero, however, clarified that the records cannot be used to add new impeachable offenses. The defense called the move a fishing expedition, while the prosecution cited AMLAC records showing that 6.7 billion pesos allegedly passed through the vice president's bank accounts. Now, to help us understand the legal implications, we are joined by Attorney Tranquil Salvador III, who served on the defense team of former Chief Justice Renato Corona during his impeachment trial. Good morning, Attorney, and thank you for joining us again.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jessica.
Yes, Attorney, as expected, the biggest development yesterday was the impeachment court granted the prosecution's request to issue a subpoena for the Vice President Sara Duterte's financial records. From a legal standpoint, was the impeachment court right to grant the subpoena?
Actually, I would say I expected that. I expected the issuance of the order requiring the issuance of subpoena. Why? Allow me to explain this. First, let us address the first matter, which are the bank records. Historically, this has been previously allowed in the impeachment of President Estrada and Chief Justice Corona. Second, there is legal basis for this because under the bank secrecy law, there is an express exception that says it can be allowed during the impeachment trial. So that in its purest, in its simplest form, there is basis for that. And I did not foresee that they will make it difficult or they will run around it. Except that I think they would want to know which banks would really require the issuance of such subpoena and the individuals subject of a subpoena ad testificando, meaning to testify. Now, on the matter of the anti-money laundering records, I would say that they were able to explain the basis. Although, allow me to say that if you look at the secrecy of the anti-money laundering law, you will not find an exception. In the same manner as you will find it in the secrecy of bank deposits, you will not find an enumeration. Except that, if you would recall, they explained it this way. They said that in investigation in aid of legislation in the legislature, it has been allowed. Before the Sandigan Bayan, it has been allowed. And again, they are trying to explain through that order that the Constitution is above, above all of this, and the importance of accountability. So I expected that they will explain it in that manner, na ibibigay nila. On the third one, this is a bit of a two-step process, before the records could be transmitted to the Senate. Why do I say this? While the order recognizes the relevance of the same and that there was sufficient particularity, description of what they needed, but there is a law, the Internal Revenue Code, and if I'm accurate about it, it's Section 270, that prohibits, as a general rule, access on the not bank records, but the tax returns of individuals, except if with the consent of the president, allowed by the president, except when the consent of the taxpayer is obtained. And number three, there are existing treaties because there is, for instance, a request from a foreign country. So with this, what happened was they granted the issuance of a subpoena on the ground of relevancy, on the ground of particularity. However, they said that they leave that matter to the Commissioner of Internal Revenue on how he will address it. They are aware of the limitations under the rules. So the I think the concern of the Internal Revenue Commissioner now would be, will I immediately follow and I will send it? That's one. Or will I get the consent of the President of the Republic, consistent with Section 270, and then only then will I send it? Okay, so these are matters that we could expect probably to happen in the coming days, or there may even be a possibility if, for instance, the President and of course the Vice President does not give her personal consent, is that the Senate may have to vote. Okay, do we first require it to be delivered? Second, once the records are there, do we decide to vote on it to open and act the records, the tax returns? That's how I see it.
But Attorney, are there still remedies available for the defense? Because yesterday, it was Congressman Shell Diokno who explained that the admissibility of this evidence is not automatic despite the court granting the subpoena for these financial records. The court merely ruled on compelling the production of these documents. So what does that entail? Can the defense still raise a motion to stop the presentation of these documents as evidence?
Okay, Pauline, this is really procedural. Okay, for the benefit of your televiewers, in a situation where a subpoena has been issued, as in that manner, in practice, we do is to file a motion to quash. So we may expect a motion to quash. They may say again they will harp that no, it's not relevant. The subpoena anticificandum to require certain documents may be overbroad, that it covers so many years, it covers so many items, and that the documents that you want are not particularized. So that's one legal remedy that they have, and that's what usually we do in practice. If, for instance, the same was denied, let's say, for instance, it was denied, well, they have an option to go to court, but I do not foresee that as it was in the past, that this matter that the court will look into, because they will recognize the power of the impeachment court.
Attorney, we also heard Senator Pia Cayetano cite the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine yesterday. With the subpoenas, does this negate that argument? Does it exacerbate it? How does this come into play?
And that's good. That's a good phrase, Jessica. As students of law would always say, and then even non-students of law would say, no, that's the fruit of the poison. What does it really mean? Actually, if what it means, before I further explain, is that if the source is polluted, if the source is inadmissible, the manner by which it was sourced out is inadmissible. Even if it gets to be presented in court, that cannot be a basis of a judgment. That's how it is, the fruit of the poisonous tree. But however, you have to take note that the processes that have been that the Vice President has been through or have been through would be as follows. The process that she has been through. First is the Committee on Justice, right? At that point in time, it's only a determination of sufficiency in form, of substance, existence of the grounds, and probable cause. Of course, there's a lot of discussion. You should not have conducted a mini trial. You should not have presented evidence. You should not have this, right? And that the complaints were insufficient. There were allegations, but there's no evidence. But that is a separate process. Okay. Now, once the articles have been forwarded to the Senate for purposes of trial, this is another process before the Senate. Now, of course, it's the lookout of the Senate now if documents are to be presented before them. And this is accessed directly or submitted directly from these agencies, from the banks and for AMLA, from agencies of government. So this is now an opportunity for everyone, for the prosecution, to present it, meaning to authenticate it, because there is what you call the process of authentication, which is found in Rule 132 of the Rules of Court. But again, I would like to caution the public as early as now. Alam nyo, dito maiinip ang tao pag hindi nila sila familiar sa proseso. So baka kaya mainis na sabihin, bakit ang isang dokumento tatanungin, what was the date of the document, when was it issued, who signed it, why did you know that the person signed it, why was it, where was it delivered? Because that process is what you call authentication. And why do you need to have an authentication in court? The reason is you don't want polluted evidence in court. Probably the document may have been falsified, the document may have been fabricated, the document may be fake, the document may have been, what you call this, previously destroyed, and this is just a reproduction. All of this process we will have to listen to it, we have to go through. At tandaan nyo, napakaraming dokumento nito. So kaya nga sinasabi ko na at the onset, ang publiko, huwag kayong magalit. Kasi tama yun, yung object ay yung object, yung hindi naman dapat objectan, wag na, di ba?
Right.
Pero yung proseso talaga na dadaanan para sa ebidensya. And again, sana nga yung some people who would even know better should say this para hindi naman ang tao sabihin, dapat sige, labas mo na yan. And then you just, if it's wrong, it's wrong. Hindi po ganun kasi. First, you have to, that's why you subpoena. The person will have, the witness will have to be assessed. If he's competent, then the documents will have to be determined if it's relevant, if it's sufficiently described, those subject of a duces tecum subpoena, then this is part of a process. Medyo kailangan patient lang ho tayo.
Attorney, it's good that you mentioned the public. Can you please help us understand what happened yesterday? Because the impeachment court spokesperson said that the main chunk of the decision was already been prepared before July 6. No? So what was the process? And the public was kind of expecting a vote, no, or voting among the senator judges. So is it right that the Senate, the presiding officer lang yung nagdesisyon? Give us, can you help us understand the process, Attorney?
Okay, thank you for that question, no, Angela. Because for us to understand the process, we have to understand the impeachment rules of the Senate. And remember, under the Philippine Constitution, under Article 11 of the Philippine Constitution, both houses, to proceed with their mandate under the Constitution, will have to promulgate their own rules. Yan, para makita ninyo.
Yes.
Meron talaga rules ang Senado when it comes to impeachment. Now, what does the Senate rules say about this? In situations like this, wherein matters could be subject of a resolution or a decision, the first who will act on it will be the presiding officer. And that is the reason why the presiding officer is very critical. Because he will prepare the initial order or resolution. So natural, siya ang gagawa niya. Tama yung sinabi ng Senate spokesperson, ginagawa na niya, dinadraft na niya, inaaral na niya ahead of time. Because the duty is upon him. Now, it doesn't mean that he could be arbitrary. It doesn't mean that he will take it upon himself, that his decision is the decision of the entire Senate. No, because the same rules allows that any senator who objects will have to state his objection. And he will be given 2 to 3 minutes to discuss his objection. It's in the rules. And yesterday, if you would note, after he read into the records his resolution, what did he do? What did the other senators do? I recall Senator Cayetano saying, I will put my manifestation in writing. Senator Marcos said the same thing. Senator Camille Villar said the same thing. And I know there's a fourth one. Then Senator Pia stood up saying, she gave her manifestation. And then Senator Robin also made his manifestation. So all of this, kaya lang wala nag-call ng vote.
Right.
If there was a vote after this, then they will have to divide the House. But probably strategically, I would think, this is just a thought, no? Part of my thought process would be, to their mind, it's very early to use that vote, probably, because I think they expected that it will be very hard to question the issuance of a subpoena on bank records. Mahirap yun.
Yeah.
I think kung kahit mga advisors nila nakita, medyo mahirapan po tayo dito. Kung hindi sila agree doon, di ba?
Yeah.
But
Because there's
again,
a precedent eh.
yes. May mga it had a precedent, and this is something that the public would want to know. And I've been very vocal about this, that I even in my other interviews that I was saying that this is, I think, an important article, and expect that a lot of heightened emotions will come out on this. Because the very moment records come out, ang gagawin yan, especially now we are in social media, there is there's mainstream, there is newspaper broadsheet, there is tabloid, now there is social media. And in social media, information comes out as it happens real time. So imagine if there is a document that comes out, there immediately is an interpretation, depending on which side you are in. So those are the
Right.
realities we are faced with now.
Well, Attorney, speaking of presidents, I mean, you were part of the defense team of former Chief Justice Renato Corona. And in that trial, we saw how technical issues were quite central to the verdict, right? Particularly on SALN and disclosure requirements. Now, given that ruling, how important is that now as a precedent for the prosecution to secure a conviction for this particular article now that the court has already granted the subpoena of these documents? How central now is that precedent during the former Chief Justice's trial so that they can prove as well that the wealth of the Vice President cannot be explained?
You know, if I could bring you back to 2012, Pauline, and, you know, the single article that was conviction is really the SALN, the declaration of his asset SALN. That was it. So can you imagine now, moving forward after 14 years, you have the SALN available, you have the bank records available. Remember that during the time of CJ Corona, there were also bank records that they tried to match with his SALN, right? Then there is now there's now tax returns. So, and we're talking of, if I follow information or news moving around from the Committee on Justice, the amounts are not small. So during the time, in fact, if I could bring you back again, during the time of CJ Corona, it was a little over 100 million. At the time, it was big. But later, 10 years later, in the Sandigan Bayan, in the civil forfeiture case filed against him and his family, it was discovered that it was error. So it also tells us that this process is really accountability. Now, regardless of what the outcome is, it will be tested over time. Expect filing of cases. I don't know when it will happen, but I expect that, and probably in the course of the trial or in the years, they would really know, because that's already in court. But now, as you say, as we say, and as people say, this is accountability. Your fitness to your fitness to continue in the office.
Attorney, while we're on your experience as defense counsel for Chief Justice Corona, I just want to ask: would you advise the Vice President to appear before the Senate, before the impeachment court, especially now that she actually has higher ratings in surveys?
I think that will be a difficult question, Cheska, especially for the defense team. You know, why it's a difficult question? While the Vice President has very high ratings at this point in time, you know, they have to weigh it in. How beneficial would it be? You know, how beneficial would it be for them? Legal, constitutional, political. But I think there will be a stronger political impact to bring her out. Or would it be better just to keep her there? Because at this point in time, you have to understand politically, that there are the groups following the Vice President are varied. There are those who are, regardless of what happens, is for her. There are those who are just watching whether she could handle this, whether she could handle this. And if a chunk of these people realizes, let's say she gets to be presented, oops, parang di niya na-handle to, parang ganyan. So her following may be affected. So this is where his political and legal team will have to discuss. And communications team, because at the end of the day, while I always say that her presence in the trial is very important, and as I've seen it, as you mentioned, during the Corona trial, to face the Filipino people is the single most important opportunity for a politician. Nung panahon na yun, hindi politician. But I've already seen that's the single most important opportunity, because that single moment of time, you're able to face the Filipino. You're able to talk to them. You're able to share your thoughts and to show who you really are and your skill. Pag nakita yan, kaya nga it could go either way. It could go either way. Pag iba yan, talagang dapat siya sasabihin. Pag iba naman, kita nyo na. Pag medyo nag-shake yan, kita nyo na. So these are really, that's a good question. It's very important decisions that the team will have to make.
During that time, ayaw nyo, di ba, attorney? It
Hindi
was Justice Corona. I know. I remember that.
Nagre-report ako. Ako personal, ako hindi. Ako
Yes.
Pati ko pipresenta ko yon yung question and answer. But again, syempre, you have to abide, you have to respect
Yeah.
ako naman kasi, following the process, sasabihin ko, regardless of what it is, I respect you. I respect. And to this day, I respect the man.
Right. Okay, so I'm still on President's attorney. Let's talk about the foreign currency accounts. These were strictly excluded from the subpoena order yesterday. And the decision was also based on precedent during the Corona impeachment trial. The only defendants, the Philippine peso-dominated accounts are open to scrutiny. So, of course, the question here is this problematic in terms of the foreign currency law na, say for example, pag magnanakaw ako, lagay ko na lang dun sa foreign account ko. Hindi yung pwede buksan.
Pero Angela, you have to look at it in a, what you call this, in a greater sphere of things. Why? Because remember, most of those depositing in foreign accounts are investors, big businesses, and you don't want to create a mindset that they will be afraid. Everything could be sourced.
Right.
Everything could be questioned. Because remember, the foreign investors are looking at our process. They're looking at our process. And if they would say, wow, everything here, there's nothing actually. So that's the message that you bring. We cannot just look at it as this particular trial. We have to look at it as an entire process of the Philippines, including business.
All right. As always, thank you so much for your time, Attorney Tranquil Salvador III, and hope to see you again.
Thank you to the three of you. Good morning.
Thank you.
Thank
Good morning.
Hey, don't go away. We still have more matters to discuss after this quick break. Keep it here on One News.
Good morning. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Senator Judge Erwin Tulfo urged his colleagues to keep personal grievances out of the Senate impeachment trial. During Monday's proceedings, Tulfo said senator judges who wish to respond to allegations against them should do so outside the impeachment court through press conferences or social media. His remarks came after Senator Judge Robin Padilla addressed allegations that he ignored an ombudsman summons related to the alleged escape of Senator Bato de la Rosa from the Senate in May. Meanwhile, the word war between Senators Ping Lacson and Alan Peter Cayetano continued to escalate. The dispute stemmed from Cayetano's allegations about Lacson's declared wealth and his push to resume the Senate's investigation into alleged irregularities in flood control projects. In response, Lacson denied the allegations and raised alleged ghost flood control projects in Taguig.
Joining us now is Dean Ederson Tapia, Professor of Public Administration at the University of Makati and President of the Philippine Society for Public Administration. Good morning, and thank you for joining us, Dean.
Good morning, ladies. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, so aside from all the impeachment processes that we are hearing and seeing since the start of the trial, we are also somehow audience to the word war between or among senators. So how do you assess the ongoing public word war among senators while the impeachment trial is underway?
Well, I would characterize it as something that was, to a certain extent, disgraceful, because we know that from my perspective at least, Senator Robin Padilla is using the opportunity to sort of defend himself from the allegations that has been hurled against him. But as correctly pointed out in the speech of Senator Erwin Tulfo, that's not the proper forum for him to actually defend himself, because there are other avenues that he can use and resort to, and certainly not waste the time of the impeachment court defending himself on a case that was totally unrelated to what was happening in the impeachment court.
But Dean, do you think this word war is overshadowing what is happening indeed in the impeachment trial?
Well, yes, because sometimes some of our senators tend to hug the limelights and, in the effect, are making themselves, in fact, the story instead of really going to the substantive issues that we should be discussing about. It's an unnecessary distraction, if you will, to what we are witnessing, given that we know for a fact that this impeachment hearing would have the tendency to, in fact, wear us all down because of the technicalities and the detailed explanations of the lawyers. So it's not at all helping that some of our senators, in fact, would choose to be on the center stage and make themselves the story instead of helping us understand what the process is really all about.
Well, we've seen, there are always political lines drawn, but when it comes to the impeachment court, what does it say about the Senate as an institution when we witness, as the public, this word war, the back and forth between senator judges?
Well, it's as I mentioned, it's kind of disappointing because we would be expecting something more substantial, no? But I think it was also Senator Cheese Escudero who did say that perhaps one explanation for this opportunity being used by Senator Robin Hood Padilla is the fact that the Senate is not in session. So they're just making use of the opportunity that they have, which in this case is the Senate impeachment court. Now, however, moving on to the other intramurals, if you will, between and among the senators, I think some of them have, in fact, performed the task of defending certain position more than really ferreting out the truth. And I think the timing is also suspicious, no? To be very candid about it, I think the so-called FB Live, I think, of Senator Alan Cayetano was done at a particularly, I would say, suspect timing, because they were on the eve of a major decision that the impeachment court would be taking, and that is whether or not to issue a subpoena for the bank records of Vice President Sara. So I think it's really a sad reflection on what the Senate impeachment court has transformed itself to be, at least on the part of some senator judges.
Yun na nga, Dean Kasi parang, if you look at it, si Senator Alan Peter Cayetano and Senator Pia Cayetano went at it back and forth, no? With Kong Chel Jokno. While si Kong Jokno naman, according sa public perception, held his ground. No, yun kumbaga. And ang comment po sa social media, at this very early stage in the trial pa lang, ganito na yung, kumbaga parang the Cayetano siblings seem to be showing their cards already. So how will this affect, no, yung vote nila as senator judges? Because we are expecting them to be impartial, or they should be impartial during the impeachment trial.
You know, Angela, there's a concept in the social sciences that we call necessary fiction. We do know at this point that some senators are leaning towards one vote or another. No?
Right.
But at the very least, you have to maintain that semblance of impartiality. Unfortunately, in the case of the Cayetano siblings, they seem to disregard these things as unnecessary, no? And that kind of sort of really shows their cards quite obviously. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that they are leaning towards one side. And you know, every time they stand up, there would already be some assumption that they would be doing is in fact arguing the case for the defense. And we've seen this several times, not only once or twice, but a number of times that they've perhaps risen on a question that would in fact benefit the defense more than ferreting out the truth, which is really their ultimate task in this particular case.
Well, Dean, I like how you use the word intramurals to describe the word war that is ongoing between the senators. But from a bigger perspective, from a bigger picture, what does this say about how they are bickering? Because at least for the minority senators in the camp of Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, they say they're being singled out. It's selective justice. They're being politically attacked, right? Unti-unti na daw silang inuubos. Cases are being filed against them. Investigations are also being opened. Is that a warranted argument?
The short answer to your question is no, it is not. Number one, the cases that are being leveled or are being investigated right now did not happen last night or yesterday or even last week. Those are active cases that have been pending a long time ago, perhaps only being resurrected now because of some information. Now, as to selective justice, I also do not agree with that because we have to remember that the first one to have been incarcerated as a result of the flood control project was somebody who ran under the banner of the administration in the previous elections. No, so I think those are just attempts to somehow cover up their involvement or so-called involvement or probable involvement in the cases that are leveled against them. And I think I would describe the behavior of some of these senators as, you know, parang showing some kind of tantrums, if you will. There are more mature ways of defending yourself if you think that you are under attack. And I have to point out that the so-called attacks against them are being done all within the bounds of the legal processes. No, there's no at the very least, at least as far as we know, there's been nothing that is going beyond what is expected of people who are involved in the legal ecosystem, if you will.
Dean, I also just want to ask, with all the antagonism between the senator judges, does the antagonism between them mean that we shouldn't expect the certain senator judges to change their point of view or their votes when it comes to the impeachment?
Well, Cheska, I have always believed that hope springs eternal, no? And we have it on good authority that, you know, I'm also a student of history. For example, if we talk about the Corona impeachment case, when they started, they had it on good authority that a great number of the senators, in fact, a majority, would be voting in favor of their client, meaning to say in favor of acquittal. Then, as the evidence piled up, or whatever happened between the start of the trial and the judgment itself, Chief Justice Corona only got the votes of 3 senators. No, so yeah, as I said, it's still possible, and it would rely heavily on what would be presented in the coming hearings, and that is precisely why I am looking forward to listening to and looking at the evidence that would be presented by the prosecution, and also in equal measure, just to be fair, in the interest of fairness, also look at how the vice president would be defending herself in the process.
Well, Dean, let's talk about the latest survey by SWS showing na mayroon pong konting decrease no, ng number ng trust and approval rating si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos while Vice President Sara Duterte maintains or even nagkaroon pa nga ng pag-angat sa kanyang approval rating. So, we would assume that this would hurt a little kay Vice President Sara Duterte, this ongoing trial. But somehow the support is still there. Or we can say that it's still early, it's too early to tell kasi kakasimula pa lang naman ng impeachment trial.
Several things, no? Number one, I think the survey was conducted before or at the early start of the impeachment process, no? So the people who have been the respondents in that survey may not have been exposed to the evidence or some of the proofs that would be presented in the impeachment case, no? Secondly, parang I don't really characterize it as a complete dip on the part of President BBM and a rise on the part of Vice President Sara. If anything, the survey says something that we can describe as steady. No, so it's the upward tick or the downward tick, if you will, fall all within the margin of error. So I don't see it as significantly changing, in other words, from the previous surveys. What would be important, if you ask me, is that between now and the surveys that would be conducted after the impeachment case has already started, that would be more telling. But for now, I'm not ready to conclude or to say that the impeachment case against the Vice President does not really resonate again on the part of the people. So parang I think it's too early for us to say and make that claim.
Now, on the part of the president, Dean, his trust ratings fell to an all-time low. I think that's 34%. That's the lowest since 2024. And this survey comes just a week before his fifth State of the Nation address on Monday, July 27. And some analysts are saying this should be a wake-up call already for the Marcos administration. What are you expecting in the president's SONA?
Well, first the premise, no? There has to be an admission and a realization on the part of the people of the president that indeed things are not going that well. However, I don't think we are already at that point of no return, no? Beyond redemption. As a matter of fact, the SONA presents him with an excellent opportunity to make a report to the people about the accomplishments that he has done after the last Mahiya naman kayo speech that he did in the SONA. So, if anything, the SONA for this year has to be bold and has to be backed up by actual data. No, the people would have no patience at all for more platitudes. No, and I think that is something that the president and his people would have to seriously consider, because if we just talk about principles and motherhood statements without giving us actual proof, then perhaps the confidence level on the part of the president would further dip. No, so this SONA is particularly important because it has a lot of implications to his remaining years in office. If he's able to rally behind, to ask the people to rally behind him, then it would perhaps be a good indicator of the things to come in the remaining years of his administration.
And also touching on public perception and public understanding, yesterday we heard Senator Alan Peter Cayetano quote former Senator Joker Arroyo also saying it is useless to argue a legal point with a non-lawyer. What kind of impact do words like these have on the public watching, especially since we are not all legal luminaries?
It's bad optics, to say the least, no? And it's very condescending, not only to his fellow senator judges, many of whom are not in fact lawyers, and if I may even qualify, lawyers who did not come either from the UP or the Ateneo, and much more those who did not even finish or go to law school and take the bar exam. It's condescending. It's just like saying that the impeachment process is really something that was designed exclusively for lawyers. If we go to the statement of the late Senator Joker Arroyo, in fact, he himself had the opportunity to take that back out of the record of the Senate, because it was really a condescending statement. No, being a lawyer does not give you license to know everything that
Know
is
it
there,
all.
to know about the impeachment process, precisely because we are not in a regular courtroom. This is the impeachment process, political and constitutional in nature. So, I think to a certain extent, it's parang we can describe it as obfuscation. Nililito lang tayo with this the legal terminologies or yung mga terminology that we got used to during the previous impeachment cases, yung mga legal gobbledygook. But at the end of the day, the more important question is really accountability. So we should not exclude more people from the process, whether they're lawyers or not.
Well, it's good that you mentioned accountability because I want to circle back to what we were talking about regarding PBBM. As you said, this year will be the first anniversary of his remarks, mahiya naman kayo. From the first time that he uttered that words, satisfied po ba kayo doon sa mga nangyayari in terms of holding public officials accountable in the flood control mess?
Yes and no. Okay? I say yes because we do know that cases have been filed already against certain individuals as fulfilling the promise made by the president and his administration previously. But no, in the sense that there are still a lot of work to be done. If you look at, for example, the number of contractors that are in the center of this controversy, perhaps only one of them have in fact landed in jail and the rest continue to go scot-free. There's also some kind of slippery slope that the president and perhaps the ombudsman would have to think about very clearly as regards, for example, the possibility of making Secretary Bonoan a state witness. That is quite tricky because we are saying that, in fact, Secretary Bonoan is not the least guilty in this flood control mess. No, so yeah, I think that's something that we perhaps should consider in the next coming days. But I think it's a combination of both positives and negatives insofar as corruption is concerned. No, now, to be fair to the president, there were already some accomplishments, but I think some of the issues that have been mentioned in the past should also not go unnoticed. For example, some legislative agenda like the anti-political dynasty bill, that remains to be an important consideration for political and constitutional reforms. Another would be, for example, the rising prices of commodity products. And that is something that is far more resonant to ordinary people because it affects them on a daily basis. No? So, yun yung mga bagay that the president still has to address.
Well, going back to the impeachment trial, Dean, yesterday the impeachment court granted the request of the prosecution to subpoena the financial records of the vice president. Other analysts are calling this a major win for the prosecution, but it is only the 8th day of this 92-day impeachment trial. It's still a long way to go, but so far, what is your assessment on the proceedings, and what do you think is the strongest article here?
Okay. Well, number one, the proceedings are going okay, I think. Slower than what we would want it to and how we would want it to proceed. But I think for the most part, the presiding officer has been performing his tasks fairly, objectively, if I may say so. And I think within the bounds of what is expected of him. Okay? Now, as regards my general impression of the impeachment case, I just wish that we would be less technical about it and be more inclusive. Because, again, there's some tendency on the part of, this is my observation, on the part of the defense and some senators, as a matter of fact, to make it as technical as possible so that we tune out in the process. And that, to me, is very dangerous because you exclude the people from the process, you let the lawyers do the talking, and the senators would be making a decision independent of how the people feel about it. And to me, that is somehow kind of problematic as somebody who believes in the respecting the voice of the people.
With how things are going in the Senate impeachment, in the impeachment trial, what do you think we should expect in the coming days, especially leading up to the SONA?
Well, okay. Perhaps I may have failed to mention the question earlier. What is the strongest article? Um, my sense was that the strongest article is not really Article 4. No, although I do know that it resonates with many people. The strongest article for from my perspective is that which affects his declaration in her statements of assets and liabilities, because you can go wrong there. You have documentary proof that would determine, whether you declared or not declared certain proof. And to me, it's really very difficult to explain how a person of her stature would have zero amount in her bank accounts and zero amount of cash on hand, no? So anybody who has 1 peso in his pocket would in fact be richer than the vice president, precisely because of that declaration. Now, why is it, I think, going to be very critical and might even hurt her? Because you remember that the previous Duterte administration, and perhaps it would also uh, extend to Vice President Sara, always paraded itself as a champion of good governance. Remember that the statement of the former president was a single whiff, any single whiff or small whiff of corruption would already be enough to kick you out of government office at that particular time. No? And then the conclusion of the people here is, if the evidence would so warrant, sasabihin lang ng mga tao, ay corrupt din pala. So what makes you different from the politicians that you've lambasted all these years? No? So I think it's going to really puncture the Duterte narrative of being anti-corruption if that is positively proven by the prosecution.
All right.
All right, and with that, thank you so much for sharing your time and your insights with us. That was Dean Ederson Tapia, Professor of Public Administration at the University of Makati and the President of the Philippine Society for Public Administration. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much and good morning.
Don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after a short break. Good morning. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News.
Vice President Sara Duterte's defense team says it will abide by the impeachment court's ruling allowing subpoenas for her financial records. But the camp is not closing the door on seeking legal remedies. And for more, we now go live to our mobile journalist, Arles De Los Santos. Arles.
Yes, Pauline, kahapon nga matapos pagdesisyonan ng Senate Impeachment Court na ipasubpina ang bank, tax at AMLAC records ni Vice President Sara Duterte ay sinabi ng kampo ng depensa na hindi ito balakid para nga sa paggulo ng impeachment trial ni Vice President Sara Duterte at ito daw ay isang bagay na kanila namang inasahan na. No? Bagaman sa ngayon ay hindi pa malinaw kung ano yung magiging susunod na hakbang ng kampo ni Vice President Sara Duterte dahil marami pa or meron pa na mga legal remedies na pwede silang gawin. Kasama na dyan, syempre, kung iakyat nga ba ito sa Korte Suprema pero hindi pa yan kinumpirma ng defense team ni Vice President Sara Duterte ayon mismo kay Attorney Michael Powa. This is an option pero hindi pa confirmed kung gagawin nila yan or itataas man daw talaga nila yan at maging yung motion for reconsideration, hindi pa raw nila sigurado kung pwede pa nilang gawin yan dahil nga sinabi kahapon na ipasasabpina duces tecum itong mga impormasyon na ito mula sa iba't ibang mga bangko, maging mga private entities, though yung 19 na companies na meron umano allegation na affiliation si VP Sara napayagan, though meron dalawa na hindi, which is yan yung Pikimong Philippines and yung JTC Philippines.
Okay, Arles, sinabi ng ilang senator judges na sila ay magpa-file daw ng written dissent doon sa naging ruling nga ng presiding officer at ng impeachment court to subpoena the financial documents of VP Sara. Magkaka-epekto pa ba yan doon sa pinakapagsapina ng documents or that's just for the record?
The way we see it, Pauline, and as far as we know, this is just for the record, Kasi if we remember kahapon, si Senator Judge Alan Peter Cayetano ay sinabi niya mismo, kasi yung kanya daw naging posisyon noong 2012 Corona impeachment case, na kung saan kasama nga siya sa mga nagposisyon at nagsabi, na dapat daw isama yung mga records ni yumaong Chief Justice Corona bago siya maging Chief Justice sa mga ipasasabpina na mga impormasyon, Pero sinabi niya at nilinaw niya kahapon na that was 2012 and may mga bagong jurisprudence na yung Supreme Court, And kasama nga sa mga Senate niya ay yung Duterte versus House of Representatives na kung saan ang impeachable offenses lamang ay pwede sa mga impeachable officials ng pamahalaan, Pero may mga pinupunto si House Prosecutor Attorney Cheljok, na may mga parang may mga orbitum dictum na mga binabanggit, maging yung tinatawag natin na meron doon isang term na nakita tayo kahapon na marahil ay nabanggit daw doon sa desisyon pero hindi yon yung pinakasentro ng argument at ng bagay na nire-resolve doon. Habang kahapon, actually bago pa magbigay ng desisyon si Senator si Presiding Officer Chis Escudero ay nakita na na naggawa nga ng maliit na kumpol sina Senator Amy Marcos, Senator Camille Villar, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano at Pia Cayetano na later on yun nga magpapasa daw ng kanilang comment on the decision of the Senate Impeachment Court.
And today, Arles, on the 8th day of the impeachment trial, NBI Director Attorney Melvin Matibag will be taking the witness stand. What can we expect and kilala na ba natin kung sino ang mag-cross-examine at least for the part of the defense?
Pauline, araw-araw tinatanong natin tuwing may witness na harap kung sino ang ibabala ng defense team ni Vice President Sara Duterte pero tikom talaga ang bibig dyan ng spokesperson ng defense team at abangan na lang natin kung sino man ang magtatanong. Pero regardless kung sino man yan, sinabi naman ni Attorney Michael Powa na handa ang kanilang ang kampo ng depensa para sa pagharap ni Attorney Melvin Matibag at syempre as long as magiging desisyon at daloy nito ay kanila naman daw susundin. Syempre abangan natin yung kanilang cross-examination at kung hihiling ba sila ng re-cross-examination and kung matatapos din ba ito ngayong araw dahil pagkatapos ni Attorney Melvin Matibag Domestigo ay didiretso na tayo sa susunod na articles of impeachment para sa umunoy paggamit ng confidential at intelligence funds ng DepEd at OVP na hawak ni Vice President Sara Duterte.
Okay, thank you very much for that report. That was mobile journalist Arles de los Santos.
Now, the House Prosecution Panel welcomed the Senate Impeachment Court's decision to grant its request to subpoena Vice President Sara Duterte's bank, financial, and tax records. For the latest, we have mobile journalist Amy Atienza. Amy, go ahead.
Yes, Angela, masaya nga no ang House Prosecution Panel sa kanilabasan nitong dalawang motion na nais nga nilang ipasabina yung bank, tax at AMLAC records ni Vice President Sara Duterte. So far, ang inaabangan natin ngayon nga ay yung ang pagpresenta mismo ng prosekusyon sa last witness ng Article number 4 on grave threats and destabilization na si NBI Director Melvin Matibag, kung saan nga ang nasabi na rin ni legal spokesperson Attorney J. Tolosa ay hindi daw dapat ma-miss out kung ano man yung sasabihin dito ni Director Matibag. At nasabi din naman ni prosecution spokesperson Representative Zia Alonto Adyongno na medyo irrelevant na yung question dito if Vice President Sara Duterte contracted the person to assassinate the president. Ang mahalaga daw kasi dito ay makita nga na totoo nga rin yung video at ano pa nga ba yung ginawa ng National Bureau of Investigation para doon sa investigasyon nila mismo para nga doon sa pagbabanta ni Vice President Sara Duterte laban sa gobyerno. So tulad nga din nung nasabi ni Arles, medyo mahaba-haba yung ine-expect din natin na mangyayari for today. Yun din naman ang expected mismo ng prosecution dahil nga we will have a direct examination, the cross-examination. If kinakailangan pa, meron din nung redirect at recross examination. So yun yung mga anticipated dahil after that, we will proceed on Article number 1 on the confidential funds of Vice President Sara Duterte para nga doon sa nagamit din no at narinig natin ng mga nagdaang Justice Committee hearings na ito nga over 600 million pesos na confidential funds ni Vice President Sara Duterte ay nagastos mismo at hindi na misuse allegedly ni Vice President Sara Duterte.
Okay, Amy, regarding dun sa naging result ng oral arguments yesterday sa pagsabpina ng bank records si VP Sara, I understand itong subpoenaed records na to are not yet considered evidence. So, can you walk us through the process? What happens next before they can actually admit this as evidence?
So narinig natin no doon, Angela, sa naging trial din kahapon na may deadline nga na set on July 30 at around 9 a.m. yung deadline para nga sa pagsusumite nitong bank, tax records at yung AMLAC records ni VP Sara sa Clerk of Court ng Senate Impeachment Court. So thereafter dun pa din natin titingnan kung ano pa yung mga susunod na kinakailangan. Pero if makikita din natin no yung mga nangyari sa mga nagdaang buwan dito nga sa impeachment trial no kinakailangan nilang markahan din itong mga dokumento na ipepresenta mismo pagdating sa Senate Impeachment Court. So we're anticipating na magkakaroon din ng marking of evidence pagdating dito sa submission, after na submission nitong tax records and bank records ni VP Sara. And then doon pa lang natin matitingnan no makikita kung ano nga ba yung next step, pero most likely they will present it for article number 2, which is the fourth article to be presented by the prosecution, which is on the unexplained wealth of VP Sara.
All right, thank you so much, mobile journalist Amy Atienza.
In weather, Pagasa is monitoring a low-pressure area outside the country. The weather system was last located 1,630 kilometers east of the southeastern Luzon. It has an increasing chance of developing into a tropical cyclone and may enter the country between tonight and tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, the southwest monsoon continues to affect Mindanao and the western sections of Luzon and the Visayas. Scattered rains are expected over western Visayas, the Negros Island region, the Zamboanga Peninsula, and Barm. Metro Manila and the rest of the country may experience isolated rain showers.
All right, that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. I'm Cheska Litancalo.
And I'm Pauline Verzosa.
Thank you for watching Morning Matters. See you again tomorrow. Kapatid, We're One News.
All sides,
all the time.